Spicy. It was great. It was a lot of fun. I was just talking about it with BBC that Jonathan. I didn't know that Jonathan was an avid tennis fan, and he was very kind to me. I felt very welcome, very respected, and honored to be here, to be there. Of course, in his show, that is a great show. I thought he was a great host, and we had a lot of fun. We even played some tennis at the end, so you'll see that.
Next question, over here, Carol.
Novak, next sure you're going to be the world #1 in the end. Can you reflect a bit and share what it feels, because it comes back from nowhere if you think back in March, and it's one of the biggest accomplishments in sport for sure.
Well, I mean, that's next to the Grand Slams, I mean, obviously, and World Tour Finals, you know, being #1 is probably the ultimate challenge in our sport, and the pinnacle of the season. So, of course, I'm very, very proud and of that achievement, and I understand that it's extra special this year because of the whole process and the journey that I've been through in the last 15 months, especially. I mean, particularly last 8 to 10 months after February's elbow surgery. It looked quite improbable that I would be in this position as a year-end #1. Not just because of the rankings, it was, I think, 22, but just because of how I felt on the court, how I played. But there was always part of me that believed that I can make it back, and I never thought it was impossible. I just thought at the time, well, it might take more time than I wish it to be, and but it turned out to be perfect 5 months of the year with 2 Grand Slam titles, and of course, unfortunately, Nadal had to withdraw from all of his tournaments after US Open. So he was not in that race, but at the same time, I thought it was a great 5 months that were crowned with this achievement.
On the right, Maria.
You must be very proud that Marian got the Coach of the Year award. Can you talk about the impact it had on your season, getting back with him this spring?
Well, first of all, I have to say what I said many times before, is that Marian is more than a coach to me. He's a friend, he's a family member, and he's someone that I can always rely on. Even when we haven't worked for 12 months, we were constantly communicating, talking about life, about family, about tennis. So we have that relationship that almost has an unbreakable bond, and hopefully that's going to stay like that for the rest of our lives. And to have him back officially as a coach was obviously a treat for me, and I was very grateful because at that time obviously I split with Radek and Andre, and I was thinking in which direction I want to go, whether I want to have someone new. But I felt at this stage of my career, I just want to try to have that kind of going back to the basics feeling, and having people around me that know me well enough that can contribute to my game, to my life, to my balance, and to get the best out of me. So having Marian on board definitely contributed a lot to this success.
Novak, obviously when you're a bit younger and when you were really dominant, tennis was probably the most important thing in your life, and that was probably the approach to the sport. But as you got older and you're a father of 2, and the way now your approach to the sport has changed, how are you able to, can you talk about the transition from tennis being that and then being how it is now, and how you're able to still win with this new mentality?
Well, thank you for the question. I mean, a few years ago when I was, after winning Roland Garros, holding all 4 slams at the same time, I mean, I was reflecting on this many times before that I kind of emotionally hit the wall, and I never thought that that's going to happen, that I will have a difficulty to compete, so to say, at emotionally at at a high level, and try to re-engage myself, to perform. I've never lost the passion for tennis. I enjoyed practicing, I enjoyed playing, but once I started to compete at that time, it was just a struggle. And talking with with some other tennis and sport greats, I understand that everyone was going through that kind of particular circumstances at certain stage of their career sooner or later. And Navratilova was actually very kind to me, and kind of spent a lot of time talking about that, and she was reflecting on that, and she was talking about how you kind of have to experience that moment in order to reach a new peak, and to find new ways of motivating yourself and inspiring yourself. So for me, when I became a father, obviously I had a amazing wave of confidence and motivation, and I had a best season of my life arguably in 2015, and then then after that, obviously the 16 was great to half a year, the next half was so and so, and then the injuries start to get worse, and I thought that the injury was also affected on the emotional level as well. I'm quite sure about that, and so it took me some time to really juggle with everything and understand how I can find an optimal balance where I can function at my very possible best as a tennis player, and also as a father, as a husband. And I feel like in the last 6 months I managed to find that balance, and what will happen in the future years to come, I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball, unfortunately, but right now I'm just trying to enjoy the moment.
Right this,
Novak, I think you said before that this event should move from London. Do you still have that same opinion? And if it does move, do you think it needs to stay in Europe following Paris, or can it go further afield?
Well, I've said it, but I don't want you to misunderstand what I said. I don't want it to move from London. I just feel like the concept of this event should be the one that travels, because this event is the biggest event that ATP owns, and you have the best 8 players in the world in the unique format of round-robin system, so you see at least a certain player 3 times in the entire week playing, and I just feel like this is a great leverage or an opportunity to promote tennis all around the world. And I understand, because my family used to run the tournament, so I understand you can't keep a tournament for 1 year or 2 years, but maybe 3-4 years and then move it around. And I just feel like maybe 10 years in one place is a bit too much, and not because of London or not because of anything to do with this event that is a great success here in O2 Arena, and I personally had a phenomenal success, so I should be the last one talking about moving it anywhere, because I enjoy it. But at the same time, I just feel, as a general idea of this event, I think it should be traveling more.
Novak, younger players often talk about the sacrifices they make when they're playing tennis, not going to uni or anything like that. Given how much you've talked about the balance you have in your career now, do you still feel like you sacrifice things to be number one?
Well, the sacrifices, with responsibility comes sacrifice as well. So, I need to feel the responsibility towards, myself, first of all, my own feelings, and, what I feel like makes me intrinsically happy and fulfilled in my life. But also, responsible as a father and as a husband, and as a tennis player that enjoys a lot of support around the world. So I try to balance all these things, and I'm not the only one. I mean, every one of us on this planet has to, deal with this kind of challenges, mental challenges, emotional challenges on a daily basis, really, how to balance professional, private life, and how to live the most fulfilling life that you can actually have. So I'm no different in that. I just I just try to do something that life has kind of organized for me, and I'm grateful. I just try to be grateful on the things that I have rather than things that I wish to have.
Simon?
Novak, obviously Andy Murray's going through a long injury recovery period at the moment. Given what you learned in your recovery from injury, what's the biggest sort of challenge to overcome, not just physically but maybe mentally when you're coming back, especially having been right at the top before?
Well, I don't know in details how severe his injury is and what he's going through. I know just bits and pieces, and he's a great guy. I like Andy a lot, and I have tons of respect for him. And we obviously, the whole story. We grew up together, playing on the junior circuit, and I sincerely wish him speedy recovery. I understand that probably one of the biggest struggles that he's going through, and that I personally had in my experience with the elbow, is who to trust, and the same time, maybe you feel like a certain way or procedure that has been determined for you on your way to recovery is maybe not the most appropriate one, you would say. I mean, your gut feeling is telling you something else, and then you change the direction, and that loses a lot of time, and then you have to make up that time, and then you get emotionally disturbed because you're wasting time and you're not playing on the tour, and you're 31 years old, and all these things, all these thoughts are going through your mind. So I can only imagine, and I can in a way understand what he's going through, because for me that was the most difficult thing to deal with, is which protocol and expert to follow. And then after that, obviously, create a long-term plan and stick with it. I have been fortunate to recover pretty quickly from my surgery in February. So I was on the court literally a month and a half later, but I was far from ready to compete. So I know that it wasn't the best decision, but and probably everyone was against that decision of me playing in Wales, but I went there regardless, and I wouldn't change anything now. Don't get me wrong, I don't regret anything, but I learned from that experience, and hopefully it will never happen again, for me to face the major injury, but if it does, I'll make sure I'm a bit wiser in terms of approaching it.
Novak, since Paris, Rafa's sadly had to pull out of this event. I'm just wondering, does that mean that the Saudi Arabia exhibition is not happening?
Yeah, it's not happening, yeah.
Because he's injured?
Yes.
Oh.
Last question, please. Papa? Thank you.
Novak, I wanted to ask you about the scoring system in the next gen. Do you think it can come onto the tour at some point? Would you enjoy playing a short set and no ad tie break, no ad scoring and tie break at 4-all, at 3-all?
Yes, well, it's a fair question, but I've been saying before that I'm still a little bit undecisive in whether I support certain changes or not. I am in favor of innovations to the tennis and life in general. I'm in favor of progress and being creative and thinking out of the box. But I probably don't like all the new implemented rules on the next gen finals, and but I support the idea of experimenting with it and testing it, and because you just have to see, feel, and know how it goes, so you can eventually have some of those rules, not necessarily all of them, implemented on the tour. I think the general idea behind it is to just attract the millennials and the new younger generations of audience, because statistically, in States, for example, I mean, the average age of people watching tennis is quite high up, and so I think as a sport need to understand how we can get more attention and attract more younger audience to come to the stands and watch it on TV. So I think that's a main cause of why the next gen final is played in these kind of rules.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.